everyone, and thank you for joining our session for In the Know Tips and Tricks for Evolve 365. We wanted to start this weekly series to give simple and easy tips that anyone can go back to their desk and quickly implement. We know your time is valuable, so we're going to keep sessions to around 30 minutes, sometimes even less. We're pushing our topics out monthly, so you only have to sign up once for the monthly series instead of 4 or 5 times. And we just launched our July series last week, and today is our first July session on the SharePoint mobile app. Have you ever missed a session? You just have to go to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/user/Planet Technologies. And we have all of the series for In the Know tips and tricks videos on our YouTube channel. So a little bit about me. I'm Tanya Kaiser, your host. I'm a longtime Microsoft geek and SharePoint nerd. One of the things that I get really excited about is helping people learn new skills, especially when it comes to the Microsoft Productivity Suite. If you ever have any questions, either about Evolve, Planet Technologies, or just Microsoft products in general, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn. So a little bit about Planet. Planet has been providing expert support in the Microsoft world for over 18 years. We offer full services for the entire Microsoft Cloud and Productivity Suite, including advisory, deployment and training services, mobile application development and solutions, and strategic business consulting, including technology, compliance, and security guidance. So we're going to jump right into it, and today we're going to talk about the brand new SharePoint mobile app and some things that you want to consider if you're considering opening up that app to your users. So this may be a very short section. It is a very light app, but I just want to cover a few things on it. So this is the very first SharePoint mobile app for Microsoft. Now, if you did have a mobile device where you could access a browser, of course you can always browse to your SharePoint sites if they were on SharePoint Online. If you were on-premise, you maybe had to do a couple of extra jumps through a hoop, maybe authenticate with the VPN or something else, but you could browse SharePoint from a mobile browser, but this is a standalone mobile application that's completely contained. So we know that the SharePoint mobile app was announced at the May 4th Future SharePoint event, and a lot of SharePoint MVPs did have access to the app in the beta testing and have been giving feedback on it. So Microsoft fully acknowledged that this is an iOS app first. They're kind of pushing all of their mobile apps to iOS first, and then Android and Windows apps are coming later, and the SharePoint mobile app is very much the same. So one great thing about the SharePoint mobile app is it's available for both online and on-premise SharePoint environments, including hybrid. Now, this is specific to SharePoint Server 2013 and 2016, so if you've been hanging on tight to an on-prem SharePoint 2010 environment, you're kind of out of luck, but 2013 and 2016 are available. And the other thing that Microsoft is pushing forward with their mobile apps is this does sync in with the other mobile apps, such as OneDrive, which we're going to talk about later. So before we get into our demo, there's a few main components of the SharePoint mobile app. So there's your Sites tab, which has frequent and following sites, a Links tab, which are the sites and portals that everyone in your organization will see, and this is usually controlled by a SharePoint admin on the admin side. You have a People tab, so you can see the people that you're working with and what they're working on. And then you have a search option, which can filter by site, file, people, and then recommended content as well. Of course, you also have a settings option, but in this case, it's mainly to add or switch accounts, view your own profile, or send feedback to Microsoft on their mobile application. I can tell you right away that feedback has been coming swift and fast to Microsoft. On their initial blog post, we even had one of their primary SharePoint people answering questions about the mobile app. So I always encourage users to use that feedback option to send info to Microsoft. So I'm going to go right into my demo, and we're going to take a look at SharePoint. Now, I've already opened up the SharePoint mobile app because the first time that you do access it on your iOS device, it does take a little bit to load, and I didn't want to spend a minute or two loading this, but you can see that within my Office section here on my mobile device, I've got the Office 365 admin app, and I do have the bulk of the Microsoft apps already installed. So when we open SharePoint, again, in my case, I'm already signed in, and it defaults to this home page where you can see the sites that you're either frequently visiting or that you're actually following. So again, sites that I'm actually following, if you've been listening in on the sessions or watching our recordings on YouTube, you've seen that I've been working in this team site for a few weeks now. But this is the tab here at the bottom, Sites, again, very basic layout. I'm going to go to my team site, and you can see I've got a list of activity of what people are looking at. And then I also have a really small hamburger menu here, right above activity, and that kind of gives me, again, for the team site, activity, recent files, and lists. And then we've got a modified menu that mirrors our quick launch menu in our SharePoint site. So one thing I will show you right away, if I click Home, it's actually going to launch almost like a pop-up and give me a visual image of my actual home site, what it would look like if I was accessing this through a regular browser. So again, I have the option to come in here and zoom if I wanted to do that, but it's a little bit clunky to go to that home page. So one of the feedback items that I saw when the app was first released was there's no way to get a newsfeed within the app itself. So this is the way that you would access your newsfeed if that's something that's used regularly in your SharePoint sites, is you would click that home button. And I've got an X to close that out. I've got the site notebook, site documents, and then I have my recent libraries that I've been working with. If you click on Site Contents, it's going to give you a very similar view to that home view. So if I come into my recent libraries, we know that we've done a lot in our folder library where I've added documents. You can see right away it's taking me out of SharePoint and into OneDrive. And this is how the mobile app really syncs up with the other Microsoft mobile apps, specifically OneDrive. So I will say if you think that you're going to be using the SharePoint mobile app, you can probably get away with not installing Word or Excel or PowerPoint, but the other mobile app that you're going to have is OneDrive. And we're going to cover that a little bit later. So I'm going to go back to SharePoint, and we're just going to take a look at the other tabs. So that was, again, the Sites tab. You can see that we click Links. And again, this is curated by your SharePoint admin. There is no built-in way within the mobile app to curate these links. This is all done outside of the mobile app. So this would be done on the back end, maybe through the SharePoint admin or Office 365 admin portal, depending on what your organization is using. Well, these are the links that we want people to see, almost like a promoted links list. So you can see there's a few different sites here that I can go into. Some of the ones that we've looked at are sales and marketing. And again, it's going to take us to that team site view where we can see the documents. But you can see when it opens up, to me this is a little bit clunky. Like I wish it would just pull this site into the same way it does on the Sites tab versus giving me this image here, because you can see it takes a while to load, which is why I pre-populated it. So again, that's a little clunky to me, but I'm sure going to make an improvement to it. I would really, really like to see that pull in, just like a regular site that I was following, where it takes me directly into the site itself and I can see the activity. So that's the links menu. Again, a little bit of feedback that I think needs to be given there. People, you can separate this by sites, files, people, and recommended. So again, if we go to sites, we're seeing sites that people are working on. Files, you see the user's name and the last modified date, which is really, really helpful if you're trying to drill down onto a file on a mobile device. We have the actual people fields, so you can see people that you've been working with. And again, we have recommended. So in this case, there's nothing for recommended. So pretty common. If I click into my own account, it just shows me a quick profile, who I'm working with. If I were to click into somebody else's account, very, very similar. I can always choose this See More option, and it kind of gives you, based on what that person is doing, usually their hierarchy or organization. So again, not much to the people field. I do like the way they let you filter by sites and files. I think that's pretty interesting for the mobile app, so that may be really helpful in a scenario where you know that Garth Fort was working on a document, but you can't quite remember when it was last edited or what it was called. This may be one area where you can look that up. So the other area that I had mentioned, I'm going to go back to my sites list, is the search button. Now, search is not along the bottom. We have that settings there on the last tab on the bottom, but search is up at the top. And if we come in here and search for documents, it's pretty responsive very quickly. So I haven't even finished typing in my terms, and I'm already getting some results. So if I know that I'm looking for financial documents, if I click More Results, I can then filter by files, by people, or recommended. You may want me to type in the whole thing. So I'll type in financial, which is the previous search that I did. So again, I'm finding some sites that have that within the actual site. I can look through files, so another way that I could drill down into a file. I can look for people, and then again recommended, which there's nothing in this. But you can see by typing that in, if I were to type in marketing, which isn't a term that I've used before, pretty quickly I've got some results there. So search seems to be very responsive. The delay that I've noticed on the SharePoint mobile app is when you're first logging in or you're first opening up a site for the first time. And I'm assuming this is because it's loading in all of those content, and depending on the size of the site and how many documents you have, that's affecting it. But once you've loaded that site once, it's pretty seamless the next few times. So here's the other thing. If I want to actually open this file, it's going to switch me over to the mobile app for that specific file. So again, if you just want to come in and look at the content on a SharePoint site, it can work pretty well. If you think that you're going to have to edit documents, you can see that this opened in Excel and it's read-only. If I click more, I can duplicate it. You're going to want to have the other mobile apps installed. So this is a very, very basic look at the mobile app. Now the other thing that I want to show is settings on the bottom right-hand corner. Settings pretty much lets you view your profile, which you saw in the People tab, and I can see the documents that I've been working on. It lets you add or switch account, which is really great. The mobile app is handling this very well. So you can see I'm logged into my demo account right now, but I can also log into my own corporate account for my employer. You do have this neat option, which some people love or hate, where you can shake to send feedback. So that's just a toggle on and off, and if I just shake my phone, then I automatically get a feedback pop-up where I can send feedback. So not sure why that was included, but some people love that option. You also have the button right there to send feedback as well. So 2 different ways you can send feedback. And that's kind of it for the settings menu. So it's really to be able to add or switch accounts is the main thing. Or, of course, if you want to sign out. Now, they do have clear account cache. So if you had a number of SharePoint sites with a lot of content, that may be useful as well. So that's a really quick look at the SharePoint mobile app. Like I said, it's a very light app right now. It is the very first dedicated mobile app. You can always view items in a browser, especially if you're using SharePoint online. But it is a big step forward for Microsoft. Now, they have fully admitted that this is just the first iteration, and there will be several features coming later. Some of the things that they have mentioned are the custom metadata for libraries. So if I go back to my team site, we know for a fact that I created this folder library with multiple folders inside it, and I also created a column library that had a custom column for metadata. Now if I click into that column library, again, it's going to switch me over to OneDrive, but you can see that all I'm seeing is my documents and the date and the modified info, and I've also got size info, which is really great, but I don't have any of that custom metadata that I entered. The other thing that I can do is I can switch the view from a list to a tile view to see a short preview of the document, but again, no custom metadata. So if I were to select a file, you can see on the bottom I've got the option to send it somewhere. I can invite people to share it. I can actually send the file. Clicking the More button just lets me reorder that menu, so there's really not a whole lot to it. But again, nowhere can I see my custom metadata. Now I can also delete these files, make them available online, which is what the little parachute looks like there. If I go back and select that file again and the ellipsis, it just gives me details. I do have the option to rename the file and then to edit the file. So again, this is going to be the limitation with the SharePoint mobile app right now. If you have libraries that have been set up that have a lot of custom columns and metadata, you're going to be missing that from your mobile app. Now taking a look at the folder library where we created folders, my folders are intact. So you can see that the folders are there, and if I click into one of these folders, again, my subfolders are there. So this may be, to some, a step backward, especially for those who have been really trying to educate their users to not use folders within SharePoint. This is almost an argument for folders in SharePoint with the mobile app, which is unfortunate. So I think custom columns and metadata are very, very powerful features within SharePoint. But that's one thing to be aware of. So if users are used to using your SharePoint libraries with that custom metadata, this may be a really big drawback for you on the mobile app. And again, in OneDrive, I have that option to switch to a view. Since these are Word documents, it's going to take a little bit to populate. But again, I can just click the back button, go into a separate folder. I haven't opened this folder before, so you can see the first time you're loading content, it does take a little bit. And I've got a fairly solid Wi-Fi in my home. I normally on Wi-Fi get 90 to 100 megabits up, so again, it's depending on the content within your SharePoint site. So I'm going to go back to the SharePoint app, and again, very, very quick look at the SharePoint app. The one thing that I do want to talk about is the other mobile apps. I'm going to switch over to my presentation again. Just go to the next slide. So as you saw, the SharePoint mobile app is very much designed to work with other Microsoft mobile apps. So the OneDrive mobile app is the one that I would say you absolutely have to have, because the SharePoint app is going to let you view those files. But if you want to do anything else with the file, even if it's send to somebody or share it or make it available offline, That's all going to be done through the OneDrive app, which is where you manage the files. So that's the two distinctions that you can think of. SharePoint is letting you view those files, but the OneDrive mobile app is where you're going to actually manage those files. Now, it is one thing to note, your files are still very much in SharePoint, but they're using the interface of the OneDrive mobile app to manage those files. Again, you saw that the basic common functions are available now. You can share a document, you can invite other people, you can make it available offline, you can send it as an attachment, but anything beyond that is going to be something that's going to add later. And the first thing that I mentioned was one of the examples that came out right away from Microsoft. Custom metadata, custom views are things that they have specifically mentioned that are going to be added later on. You saw how I opened the document and it went straight into OneDrive. I want to show really quickly in a Word document how that works. So we're going to go just back really quickly, and I'm going to just open up my team site. And we'll just say we're going to open up this quick reference card. So it's going to switch me over to Word. You can see it's connecting here really quickly, and it's actually downloading this document and the versions. Now, if this doesn't take too long, we can see we've got a document up here. I can click more. It's read-only, and then I can tap to edit it. And again, since this is a Word app, I am on a very small device. So if you have an iPad, whether it's the mini or the regular size iPad or the Pro, it may be a little bit easier to work on mobile, or if you have another compatible device. But again, this is really designed for mobile devices. They want you to be able to get in and do basic info. So I can just come in here and then just start typing. So it's really, really that simple. You can see that I can pinch and zoom on the screen if I want to edit that. And then you can see the features here. So if I click the word, it's again, autosave is on. I can duplicate the document. I can restore a prior version. I can export. But this isn't really functions within SharePoint. They're really taking you to Word to do this, even though this document happens to be connected to SharePoint. So again, I can always go back and do an undo. You can see that I've got some options here for font and colors, and this is where you're going to get that full feature functionality. If you're really wanting people to not just use SharePoint, but also, take it to the next step and be able to edit documents on the go, you have to have these mobile apps. So again, just looking through this really quickly, you can see some of the features. It gives me a much cleaner view. If you click that button, we can always go back. And again, I have right within the app, I can invite people, I can give them a link, or I can send it as an attachment. This is going back to SharePoint though, so I'm going to go back to SharePoint. And if we were to refresh, we would see that this document was actually edited. So again, it's really very much tied to the other mobile apps within the Microsoft suite. So at a minimum, you're going to need the SharePoint app, and you're going to need OneDrive to do anything else with the files. If you want people to be able to edit them, then they need the other productivity apps like Word, Excel, PowerPoint are probably the most common ones. So I'm going to switch back to my presentation. And some things to consider if you're really considering opening up the mobile world to your users. One of the big comments that I saw when this was first released is that only some authentication methods are supported. So the big ones that I've seen people ask about are SAML and ADFS. On both of those, they said that we are going to be supporting multiple authentication methods, but there's really no timing that they're sharing at this time. So ADFS is a big one for on-premise SharePoint environments, and that's a little disappointment to a lot of people. They were really hoping that they could take this mobile app and open it up to their users if they didn't have any other requirements such as a VPN, but without ADFS, that puts a big gap for on-premise environments. Now they have said that MDM and MAM authentication methods and management are supported. I haven't been able to see that in the app. I don't do a lot of stuff on the back end. I mainly focus on the user side, but that is called out in their fact that they are supported. You saw the news feed. So the only way that I can currently access the news feed on the mobile app is by opening up that image of the site and then pinching and zooming, which is a little clunky. Some people would say, we don't want to revert back to email for sending out, company-wide announcements. We want to be able to have a news feed just like we do for links or people. So that's one of the big features that I've asked. Something that has been called out by people is when they've had custom branding, you don't get that come across in the mobile application. It's simply all of the standard default look. So if you had put a lot of time and effort into your custom branding, unfortunately, the users are not going to see that on the mobile app. They're just going to see the regular tiles or the regular navigation. In certain cases, I'm sure that would be an issue, but that's something to at least be aware of before you're looking at it. The other thing that people have asked about is data security. So when you saw me open that document and it switched to OneDrive, I have the option to email that. I have the option to download a copy. But since I'm on a mobile device, I could potentially be taking that information outside of the parameters of my company and violating security standards or document control. So that's one thing to be aware of. Now, other people who have on-premise environments may have a whole separate thing about, they need to be on a VPN or a certain network. That's a whole other issue. But these are the main points that I want people to be aware of. The newsfeed isn't there. Your branding's not going to be there. But then on the other side, if you have SAML or ADFS for authentication, or if you're really concerned about document and data security, you may need to take a closer look at it. So like I said, it was going to be pretty short and sweet. It is a very light app. I've been really excited to try out the app. I was waiting, since I'm not the SharePoint MVP, I had a little bit of app jealousy with some of our SharePoint MVPs, but the minute it was available, I woke up that morning and had a notification on my phone. I downloaded it, started playing with it right away. So I'm excited that they're making this step. It just makes it easier to get to some information, and I'm excited to see the features that are going to come out. But as we know, if you do have Office 365, this is one of the challenges that you face with your users. There are constant updates and then changes in the way Office 365 functions, and you never know when those are going to come down the line and then how you're going to be able to push that information out to users, especially if it's a big shift in the way things have been done with SharePoint. We're seeing a lot of that happen right now with the modern libraries and then the new site contents experience, and then coming down the line we're going to see even more changes for SharePoint when we have the ability to move files from one SharePoint site to another or from OneDrive to SharePoint and vice versa. So at Planet Technologies, we actually have Evolve 365, which is our subscription-based help desk as a service for Microsoft Office 365. And the whole point of Evolve 365 is to increase your end user adoption and help your organization be more productive when these changes come down the line. So we always have on-demand self-help available with Evolve, but we also have the ability to add on live support as well. So if you're on Office 365, you're making that big switch to Office 365 pretty soon, this is a resource that you can really put to use for your users. They can get on-demand help anytime they like. We also have guided training through there. And then if you need that extra step of live support, that's an option as well. Every Evolve 365 subscription comes with a dedicated Office 365 trusted advisor like myself. We can also help you with vision and planning services too as you're going through your upgrades or your migrations. I'm not going to do a short demo since we're running really good on time, but you can get the layout of the site here. We have over 25,000 videos for Evolve 365 covering all Office applications back to 2010 up to the current versions with Office 365. We also have SharePoint content as well as Windows operating systems for 7, 8, and 10. So it really encompasses everything that an end user would need to do their day-to-day work and then also deal with a transition to either a new version or Office 365. If you're interested in seeing more about Evolve 365, we do have a free trial site, freetrial.o365support.com. Now our trial site does have limited content. Again, we're not going to open up all the 25,000 videos, but you can see some sample videos and see how our content is laid out. One of the great things about our content is that most videos are 20, 30 seconds, no more than a minute in length. So someone can come in and search, how do I upload a document to SharePoint, and find the answer and get exactly what they need within seconds. We're not going to make them sit through a 30-minute video or a few hours long skill track. They get the immediate help that they need, and it's very short and to the point. In addition to each video, we also have the text instructions as well. So we're reaching both kinds of learners, both visual and those who just need the text. They really could care less about a video. So I encourage everyone to take a look at the free trial site. You can always email us, of course, if you want more info at info@o365support.com. As I mentioned earlier, you can reach out to myself on Twitter or LinkedIn. So some events that we have coming up, the Tips and Tricks June series completed. We now have July available. So in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be covering Word and taking a closer look at the designs, themes, and style sets. We're going to be taking a look at some of the more advanced features in PowerPoint, like the slide masters and how you can control those. And at the end of the month, we're going to be talking about all the new changes to SharePoint, including those modern libraries, site content and insights, and maybe some other things if they release them during this month. I mentioned Unity Connect Online here because recordings are now available. So you can still go and register for Unity Connect Online and access all of the recordings. We had more than 40 sessions covering SharePoint, Office 365, Azure, hybrid events. There's something for everyone from end users to business administrators to developers. And Planet just had their best practices for Windows 10 deployment last week. So if you are looking at moving to Windows 10 in your organization, you can find that video on our YouTube channel as well, and that's a great presentation to take a look at. So we're doing great on time. I'm going to just wait a minute or two for any questions, but I want to thank everyone for joining us today. That was our quick look at the SharePoint mobile app. Again, this is the first iteration of the app, so we know that more is coming down the line and more features, and you'll probably see another session on the mobile app once more features have been released. So I encourage you to keep an eye on our YouTube channel or sign up for our monthly series. You can always sign up for our monthly series at go-planet.com/events. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And just let me know if you have any questions. I do see one hand raised for a user, so I don't see a question in the chat window. I'm just going to wait another minute or two to see if you have an actual question.